Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live and proudly from the Hesselson studio here on historic Market Street in Corning. Let's start off first. We'll kick it off with a big Wyoming wave. Yes, a wave all the way from the great state of Wyoming. We do have a comment we're going to kick off the program with, and then we're going to talk about all the breaking news of the day. Later on in the program, we're going to be talking with Justin Eberlin. He is running for Steuben County Legislature. He is running in the district that encompasses Caton, Hornby, and the town of Corning. So that'll be in the 7 o'clock hour. First off, comment from a viewer. This is from Ed. Hi, Ed. Rite Aid is closing, bankrupt for the second time, and forced to sell all stores. Because they were sued along with Walmart and Walgreens for $3 billion for being responsible for the opioid epidemic. Ed says he lost his brother because he was overprescribed opioids that his doctor overprescribed for a back injury. It was let go by Big Pharmacy for profits. I was also a first responder on 9/11. Well, thank you for your service, Ed. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. And then he says, love your show. Well, thank you. Glad you wrote in, Ed. Keep them coming in. I appreciate it. Oh, here's another. Good morning, Virtual Wave. Thank you very much. So the big news yesterday, the white smoke, of course. Your thoughts on the first ever American Pope. I'd love to hear what you think. Now, on the political front of things, it's kind of a mixed bag. He is a registered Republican voter, very active in his voting record, according to the New York Post. He voted in the 2024 presidential election, but we also know that he has spent years retweeting criticism of Trump's policies, so it's a little bit of a mixed bag. But he made history being the first ever American Pope, right from Chicago. And it was actually less than 24 hours into the secret voting session at the Sistine Chapel. The new Pope, known affectionately as Father Bob, stepped out onto the balcony in the Vatican to cheering crowds as he was greeted with them saying, "Peace be with you." Now he is 69 years old, like I said, born in Chicago. He is now Leo the 14th. There is a report that he kind of hinted ahead of time to his brother that he may get the job by saying something to the extent of, what name should I go by? Now, I did hear from some viewers late last night that said it was a really moving ceremony. It was one viewer saying it brought them to tears. What CNN says is there's 10 things you need to know. 10 things about the new Pope. He was, this is a weird way of putting it, but he was, quote, the least American of the American Cardinals. Prevost, was born in Chicago, but inside the Vatican, where he eventually lived and worked, he was considered the least American of the U.S. Cardinals. He worked for a decade in Peru and was later appointed bishop of another Peruvian city, where he served from 2014 to 2023. He speaks fluent Spanish and Italian, both of which he displayed during his first address to the public in St. Peter's Square. We also know that he was well regarded by Pope Francis. The late Pope Francis, quote, respected him and thought of him very highly, according to Vatican correspondent Christopher Lamb. Clearly, Pope Francis saw in him something. He saw in him as a capable leader, a very thoughtful person, a very measured person. Now, he's a member of the Augustinian order, which is spread across the world. He led the order for more than a decade as its prior general. He has strong leadership experience. These are all the things that CNN believes that you should know about Pope Leo XIV. He has a missionary focus. Prevost said in an interview with the Vatican News shortly after he was moved to his leadership role in Rome, he said, I still consider myself a missionary. My vocation, like that of every Christian, is to be a missionary, to proclaim the gospel wherever one is. Now, he's also, this is something to be noted, he is also a Peruvian citizen. He has dual citizenship in the United States and, and Peru. His His name, Pope Leo the 14th, reflects commitment to the poor. The last pope to take the name Leo, Pope Leo the 13th, of course, was a pope on the side of the poor and who stood up for workers. Leo the 13th was pope from 1878 to 1903. Now he's seen as a centrist unifier. He studied math at Villanova in Pennsylvania and went on to receive his diploma in theology from the Catholic Theological Union of Chicago. And finally, he's a fan of tennis. Thank you, CNN, for that hard work and dedication. But as I mentioned, he was an active Republican voter and voted in the 2024 election. The Dolton, Illinois-born Pope also voted in general elections in 12, 14, 18, 24. Voters in Illinois are not required to register with a political party, but the recent voting records revealed that he has only participated in Republican primaries. But as I had mentioned, he spent years retweeting criticism of President Trump. I'm not going to go through the tweets. And I know he had said some critical things of J.D. Vance as far as, and I don't know what it was in reference to, but saying you are wrong. Now, Trump wrote on social media, "Congratulations to Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who was just named Pope. It is such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope. What excitement and what a great honor for our country. I look forward to meeting Pope Leo the 14th. It will be a very meaningful moment." That's a great honor, Trump later told the press. "I was watching it and they said he's from America. I said, that's great." J.D. Vance also congratulated Pope Leo, saying, "I'm sure millions of American Catholics and other Christians will pray for his successful work leading the church. May God bless him." So that is your update. Feel free to weigh in. Now, if you recall earlier in the week, we talked with Big Fox News' Dante Brown, and one of the topics that came up was boxing. So I thought I would give you an update. This is impossible to segue from the Pope to boxing, but we're going to try here on Frankly Speaking this morning. Anyway, this was a topic of discussion during our interview with Dante Brown. But get this, boxing legend Manny Pacquiao is planning to come out of retirement to battle Mario Barrios in Las Vegas. The pay-per-view fight will take place on July the 19th, and we'll see them fight for the WBC welterweight champion. Manny Pacquiao looking to go out on top. Now, this will mark an end to a nearly 4-year retirement for the 46-year-old Pacquiao. Now, he's always somewhat remained in the sport, but rumors have been swirling about this fight since late last year. The upcoming match will be available through PBC on Prime Video pay-per-view, according to ESPN. Pacquiao last competed in a competitive fight in August of 2021 when he was defeated in a unanimous decision for the WBA welterweight championship. The Philippine boxer opted to hang up his gloves after the fight and put more focus on his political career because he served as a senator in the Philippines from 2016 to 2022 and is now in the middle of a close Senate race. Now, Pacquiao was not planning on formally announcing his desire to return to boxing until after the May 12th election, according to Brunch Boxing. Nevertheless, all indicators suggest that he is making that return. So for our boxing fans, what are your thoughts about 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao coming out of retirement? I don't think, if you're a boxing fan, you ever get surprised by someone coming out of retirement. So I'm not surprised, though it is interesting because this year he is getting inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, which is right down the road in Canisteo, New York. If you've never had a chance to check it out, especially during their induction weekend in the summer, I highly recommend that you do. It's a great tourist attraction, and it's just an amazing museum if you are a boxing fan. And even if you're not, I mean, there's plenty to see and do there, especially at induction weekend. But one of the kind of contingencies, that's not the right word, one of the kind of rules, if you want to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame, or if you're inducted in the Boxing Hall of Fame, is you're supposed to have been retired for a certain period of time. I don't know if they've let that go, or in this instance, he's already been selected, so I'm sure he's still being inducted. Now, yesterday, think about this. Where else can you see a program that goes from the Pope to boxing to Barbara Bush? Melania Trump unveiled the new stamp featuring Barbara Bush yesterday in a ceremony honoring the late First Lady. The current First Lady announced that the matron of the Bush political dynasty would be featured on specialty U.S. Postal Service stamps in the East Room, surrounded by members of Bush's family and loved ones. Melania said while she is known for championing literacy, she also supported women's empowerment, changed the national conversation on AIDS, and took a stand supporting gay rights. Dorothy Bush Koch, Bush's youngest child, teared up as she delivered a speech honoring her mother on behalf of the Bush family. Yet the late First Lady's son, former President George W. Bush, and daughter-in-law Laura Bush, who have distanced themselves from the Trump administration, did not attend, which I think speaks volumes on the political front there. And, there's still a lot of hard and bad feelings, if you will, going back to how, I would say, easily Trump defeated Jeb Bush. Obviously, there's a lot of name calling back then. But Jeb Bush, if you recall, we were told was the only way we were going to defeat Hillary Clinton, by the kingmakers of the Republican Party. And I've stated this a million times on the program, but I believe that's when the Republican Party finally said enough is enough. I think the Democrat Party's going through that a little bit right now with why is it these kingmakers keep telling us we've got to vote for this person because it's their turn, and then they lose. But it should also be known that President Trump did not appear at the unveiling. Now, it's unclear why the president didn't attend. Again, it could be because of that Jeb Bush thing a little bit. But a very nice ceremony in the White House. Now, we also learned that ahead of Mother's Day this year, the White House is honoring military mothers by welcoming them once again to the People's House. First Lady Melania Trump hosted moms serving the nation in uniform, the mothers of service members, and the mothers whose spouses serve in the U.S. Armed Forces. This happened yesterday afternoon. President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Second Lady Usha Vance were all in attendance. The president saying, "You all do an outstanding job, and you should take tremendous pride in what you're doing and what you do." The president gave a special shout out to those working at the White House, thanking Air Force One pilots, nurses with the White House Medical Unit, and musicians in the military band. First Lady Melania Trump opened her speech by acknowledging the life-changing event that is motherhood. She called it, quote, an event that makes women invincible and exposed at the same time. It's remarkable, really, that my son's life creates unimaginable, unprecedented concerns and thrills for me, even until this day. All caring mothers understand these rare feelings. Nothing against fathers, of course, she quipped, but in my opinion, and I'm sure everyone in this room agrees, only a mother can grasp this particular point. All right, when we come back, some other breaking news. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm missing some of these waves. I was zoning out. We're going to talk about, I think, especially in our area, but I would say many people that supported Trump, very excited about his announcement for interim D.C. U.S. Attorney. We're going to talk about that. We have a couple quick updates on what's happening at universities. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I do want to give you an update because I think there's quite a few things worth mentioning. Obviously, yesterday, and if you saw it, I'd love to hear your response. Joe Biden spending a little time with the hosts of The View. Do you know why Kamala Harris lost? Well, you may have your theories, but Joe Biden knows it's because of sexism. So we're going to talk about that as well. And also, posing the question this morning, do you agree with Al Sharpton, who says that Trump is fumbling and voters, supporters of Trump, are getting, quote, buyer's remorse, according to Al Sharpton on the program All In on MSNBC. So are you feeling buyer's remorse? That's our question, at least to start off the program this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam is brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you for joining us. President Trump, once again, chipping away at the hosts of Fox News. This time, Elmira's own Judge Jeanine Pirro, friend of Frankly Speaking. Well, at least in the radio days. We had her on numerous times. What a nice lady. As interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Trump wrote on Truth Social, Jeanine is incredibly well qualified for this position and is considered one of the top district attorneys in the history of the state of New York. She is in a class by herself. Congratulations, Jeanine. A Fox News media spokesperson told the Post that Pirro was a wonderful addition to the Five over the last 3 years and a longtime beloved host across Fox News media who contributed greatly to our success throughout her 14-year tenure. We wish her all the best in her new role in Washington. Now, if you weren't aware, yes, Judge Jeanine Pirro is from Elmira. Now, her mother has since passed away, but up until relatively recently, her mother was still living in Elmira. I recall, just to show you how nice of a person she is, I remember her doing my radio show, and she was asking what channel it's going to be on and what time it's going to play, because I want my mom to be able to tune in. Here she is on the #1 cable news network on TV, and she's more excited about having her mom hear her on the radio in Elmira. I thought that was such a charming anecdote, I guess, if you will. But I was honored to talk to her. It might have been about 3 times, maybe. Now, earlier Thursday, Trump pulled the nomination of Ed Martin to serve as the Capitol's top federal prosecutor after Senate Republicans kind of balked at the choice. I think we had an opportunity to talk about that quickly towards the end of the program yesterday. But Trump said he's a terrific person and he wasn't getting the support from people that I thought. I can only lift the little phone so many times in a day, but we have somebody else that will be great. Now, Pirro, who is 73, is a former Westchester County prosecutor, judge, and district attorney. She was county prosecutor for 15 years, rising to the level of assistant district attorney before being elected judge in 1990. In 93, she became the first woman elected to Westchester County's top law enforcement post. The Albany Law School graduate served 3 terms as Westchester County District Attorney and gained a reputation as a relentless prosecutor of domestic violence cases. Trump wrote in his announcement, during her time in office, Jeanine was a powerful crusader for victims of crime. Her establishment of the Domestic Violence Bureau and her prosecutor's office was the first in the nation. She excelled in many ways. Now, if you recall, she did even challenged Hillary Clinton for that Senate seat. Her Senate campaign was short-lived. She dropped out a few months after announcing her candidacy. But in 2006, Pirro was nominated as the GOP candidate for New York's Attorney General. She lost that race to future Governor Andrew Cuomo. So, boy, hey, Fox News, if you're looking, you guys have got to be short-staffed over there. You see my number on the bottom of the screen. But congratulations to Jeanine Pirro, Elmira's own. Very proud. All right, a couple of college updates. Am I doing? I'm running a little bit late. Yeah, I'm running a little late. So let me give you a quick couple announcements about the program. So this morning on the show, we're going to be talking with Justin Eberlin. He's running for Steuben County Legislature. He is in the district that encompasses Kate and Hornby in the town of Corning. So if you live there or you know people that live there, let them know that interview is today. Next week, you can almost call it Irwin Week. But on Monday, the Gaffer District is going to come in. We're going to talk with Colleen Fabrizi. She is going to join us to tell us about Glass Fest, not only Glass Fest, but her last Glass Fest. She announced that she is retiring from the Gaffer District. Well, Glass Fest is coming up very, very quickly. The kickoff of summer starts on May the 23rd. That is when the glass ribbon cutting is. So she'll be joining us on Monday. On Tuesday, Robbie Nichols from the Elmira Pioneers. He's going to tell us about this upcoming season and about opening day at the ballpark. Then this is when it now turns to Irwin. What I mean by that, in full disclosure, I am the resident of Irwin and also proudly on the town board. So these are going to be very by the book. They all are going to get the same exact questions because they are running for Steuben County Legislature in Irwin. So if you know someone in Irwin, tell them to mark their calendars for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday so they can get to know their candidates. On Wednesday, it's Gernald Bakari. He is running for Steuben County Legislature in the Eberlin District. You may recall he was on the program before when he ran for Steuben County Judge. Then on Wednesday, that's Wednesday. Then on Thursday, Kristen Clemens Westervelt. She is running as well there in Eberlin. And then on Friday's a packed day. Friday, we're going to be talking with James Kuhl. He is the incumbent running in Irwin, in that district, Irwin, for Steuben County Legislature. And then on Friday, that's a big primary, isn't it? Then also on Friday, right after we talk with James Kuhl, we'll be talking with, well, of course, it's Fridays. Fridays with Phil, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano will be our guest. So think about that next week. Wow. We are packed with excitement. All right, when we come back a little bit about colleges, we do have some updates on the New York State budget that did pass. It's all over but the shouting. We're going to talk about that. And Biden's visit on The View. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and today is Friday. You know what that means? We've got Climate Fact Friday from Bob. Good morning, Bob. Thanks for writing in. Bob writes in on Fridays to give us a little climate fact. You ready for this? Here we go, from Bob. Again, we are not getting the truth from the mainstream media. It seems the Earth is getting greener. Yes, for the last 30 years, the Earth did not burn up. Instead, it has added 20% more healthy green trees and vegetation. That is an area twice the size of the United States, mostly in arid climates in China, the sub-Saharan deserts of Africa, and many other locations worldwide. Some nomadic herdsmen can now graze their livestock in places that have not been grazed for hundreds of years. All of this has a cooling effect. I guess the Earth has a way of healing itself. Remember, you heard it first here on Frankly Speaking. Thank you. You did hear it first. Thank you. Climate Fact Friday from Bob. We appreciate it as always. We look forward to it, as a matter of fact. The highlight of our Fridays. Okay. What is not a highlight is that I have to keep giving you updates on Columbia, Harvard. But Columbia says it suspended some of the masked anti-Israel, anti-Semitic student rioters who trashed the campus library earlier this week. In that violent takeover that saw at least 2 security guards injured. They have already handed down at least 65 interim suspensions. What's the deal with interim today? Interim suspensions to students who were part of the chaos, according to the New York Post. 65. Another 33 individuals, including those from affiliated institutions and unspecified numbers of alumni, were also barred from campus. So you even have alumni, you have grown-ups. I wonder if any faculty got suspended. So Columbia is at least putting on the show, as someone said yesterday on the program, putting on the show that they're trying to look as if they're cracking down on anti-Semitism so they get their taxpayer funding. Joseph Postnik, executive vice president of the New York Board of Rabbis, said, "What happens the day after? We need to see serious consequences." And calling for, I love this, some Old Testament justice. This happened during preparations for final exams. They don't qualify as serious students. There should be harsh consequences. People were assaulted. Columbia needs to come down hard or this activity will happen again and again. Yes, because if there are no consequences, real consequences, they know they can, as they have in the past, get away with it. They don't care if it affected other people's exam studies. They don't care if it affects the taxpayer funding to Columbia. They're not looking at the future here of Columbia or have any kind of, respect for their institution because they want to be seen being the most anti-Semitic, so they get the likes and they get their retweets and these type of things. Postnik's sentiment was echoed by the Columbia Jewish Alumni Association, which said it was dismayed at the violence, destruction of property, and anti-Semitic acts by protesters at the library, while still thanking the school for calling the cops. these suspensions, I mean, especially during exams, I don't know, how are they just not booted from campus altogether? Now, suspensions are fine, but okay, are they going to be able to make up their final exams after the suspension? Or does this mean they have to essentially go another year? Does this mean that maybe they don't graduate? There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of window dressing you can do to make it look like you're cracking down, such as calling the police. But at the end of the day, if they're not real world consequences, or I think it was put perfectly, Old Testament justice, then that's all it is window dressing. The New York Post editorial board echoing this statement and the statement that I've been making, Columbia University's leadership can atone for its sins from last spring. Throw the book at the pro-Hamas thugs who stormed and illegally occupied the campus library during the final weeks. They've got, and that's, I like that, atone for their sins of last spring. They did not handle that properly. They let anti-Semitism fester and grow. And so now they're reaping the consequences. So now, let's atone for those sins. This was not peaceful protest. They violated the school's ban on wearing masks to conceal your identity, injured 2 campus safety officers, defaced property, and refused to present student IDs when asked. Other students had to evacuate the library again during finals. School officials asked the occupiers to show ID and leave, then called in the NYPD to arrest the 80 who refused. Now, I think there's something to be said about this. Now, there was 80 people that were arrested. Think of this, and I don't know what this means, and I don't know how much you want to read into this, but think just kind of analytically, think about what this means. Out of the 80 people arrested, 61 were women, 19 were men. Why is there a larger percentage of women, a much larger percentage of women, participating in these anti-Semitic acts, these pro-Hamas acts, especially if you see what Hamas believes and does to women? What would the reasoning or rationale be behind those numbers? That's kind of startling, isn't it? 80 people arrested, 61 of these anti-Israel agitators, 61 women, 19 men. At least 50 were reportedly students. Yet Columbia's leaders so far aren't even clear if any will be suspended, let alone expelled. Now, they did announce expelled. That was the word I was looking for. Why are they not expelled? I couldn't think of it earlier. Suspension to me is a slap on the wrist. Unless it affects their finals and they can't make up those finals, then maybe it's more of a punishment. But if they're suspended for a week, they don't go to class, but then they come back and they get to take their test, graduate, or get to advance to the next year, then that's not really any kind of punishment. And this will just continue to grow, as we saw from last year. So why not expelled from campus? That's when you'll be seen as doing something. And maybe, listen, when you have to make that call home to mommy and daddy and sorry, I lost you $100,000 and I can't graduate now because I got expelled because I wanted to harass Jewish students while they studied for their final exams, that phone call may not go well. That may not bode well for your future, but that's the kind of punishment, or as that one gentleman said, Old Testament justice. The school's latest acting president, Claire Shipman, has a clear duty to throw the book at them. Name and shame the masked cowards. That's another very good point. Let's start naming these people. Let's start putting them out there so that future employers know what they're hiring. Now, in New York, that may not work because you can't even know the criminal records of your potential employees because of laws changed recently. Suspend them for at least a year, denying diplomas to any otherwise set to graduate, and with any return to school, any possibility to return to school, they must show clear remorse. Work with Homeland Security to revoke the visas of foreign students who broke campus rules and engaged in violence. Demand that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg prosecute all lawbreakers, especially including any non-students. Forget about the changes demanded by the Trump administration. For its own sake, Columbia needs to reject anti-Semitism and crack down hard on violence, vandalism, and intimidation. We are resolute The calls for violence or harm have no place at our university, ran Shipman's statement last Wednesday. Let's hope the school takes all the action needed to make that so. Also, Douglas Murray took it a step farther, saying, probe the foreign influence behind those terror-loving anti-Jew college agitators. Well, maybe, yeah, because I have a couple other quick things on it. So we'll wrap up this in the next segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Let's read this comment from a viewer, and hand on the Bible, I did not write this. This is from a viewer. Good morning. Well, good morning. Frankly on Fox has a good ring to it. Who agrees? This is in reference. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. That's in reference to my jokingly saying that as Trump picks away at all the Fox News lineup, they're going to need people. And I've got my number on the bottom of the screen 24/7. So there you go. Or the line is open 24/7. It's on the bottom of the screen for 2 hours a day. So yeah, I can do 2 hours by myself. Keep that in mind, Fox. Okay. Douglas Murray says that there should be a probe into how much foreign influences, how much sway they have over these pro-Hamas, anti-Israel college agitators. Douglas Murray said, I wonder how Columbia University would behave in the following scenario. A bunch of students and outside agitators descend on their campus. They're dressed in the gear of the Ku Klux Klan, being careful to conceal their faces so as to avoid any personal criticism. They then enter the university's library and other sacred spaces of learning and chant for lynchings. How would Columbia handle that? Because you have, and that's why we've talked about the mask ban, that is a tactic used. Ku Klux Klan used it. Others have used it to cover your face, conceal your identity. That's what these pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-American protesters are doing with the face masks, the COVID masks. Would Columbia University sit by while this happened? Said Douglas Murray. Would Democrat prosecutors and left-wing activists claim that this was simply a case of people exercising their free speech rights? And would conservative pundits wishing to appear as being on the right side of history insist that the hooligans should be allowed to continue their threatening actions with impunity? I would guess that the answer to these three questions, and it's easy, would be no, no, no. So why do so many people think that a movement which dedicates itself to intimidating and threatening another minority group in America, specifically Jews, finds itself so protected? Now, he goes on, this is a great piece. You can find it for yourself at the New York Post. We don't have time to read all of it. So it is, or should be, well, let me take a step back. I would expect every person of goodwill to ask how this has happened, who was pushing this filth, and how every arm of the state could go about stopping it. So it is, or should be now. The new Klan, as he calls them, has gotten away with their violence for far too long. To adopt some language they would understand, it's time to shut this blank down. So it's time for these investigations. It's time for Columbia to take this seriously. As the New York Post editorial board said earlier, as I mentioned, suspensions I don't believe are enough. Unless it's a year suspension, they should be expelled. And now I'm not sure about this position, but Betsy McKay, who does, I very often agree with, she actually says, zip it, Mr. President. The IRS must revoke Harvard's tax status without your meddling. I'm not exactly sure why she took that tact. Now, I will say, Senator Schumer, I don't quite understand. He was showing support for Harvard. And him and Elizabeth Warren, both alumni of Harvard, accused Trump of weaponizing the IRS to strip Harvard of its 501c3 status. The truth is, Harvard should lose that status because it has illegally allowed the trashing of Jewish students' civil rights, while simultaneously skirting a Supreme Court ruling that outlawed reverse discrimination against Asian and white applicants. This isn't about trying to make left-wing academia more balanced or less biased. Even though Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code bars tax-exempt organizations from engaging in propaganda or favoring political candidates, the IRS has always turned a blind eye to campus leftism. No one wants the IRS to bludgeon universities into conforming to the president's ideals. She goes on. And as I said, I'm not going to keep going on about this. But Trump's meddling muddies the waters, giving opponents something to seize on and detracting from the open and shut discrimination case against Harvard. I would tend to agree with her, or tend to disagree with her, excuse me. The only reason I say that, well, let me finish what she said. Zip it, Mr. President. The university's actions are revolting. Time to crack down, and revoking Harvard's tax exemption is the way to do it. Money talks. I agree with her that the tax-exempt status needs to go away. I don't believe Trump's quote-unquote meddling affects it one way or the other, the public perception of it. Because what she's trying to say is when Trump talks about it or Trump gets involved with it, people think it's to move Harvard to a more conservative faculty or more conservative campus. That's not, no matter what Trump does in this case, if they revoke that tax-exempt status, he will be blamed. The media will tell you that he did it because he wants to force MAGA on Harvard. So I understand what she's saying in theory, but I think she knows or would recognize that the media is, no matter what happens, if Trump never says another word about it, the media is going to say this is an attack on free speech done by Trump to push MAGA. So I think it's a little utopian to think that we're not well past that happening. I mean, that happened as soon as Trump mentioned it, and it would have happened even if Trump didn't mention it, if it just happened from the IRS. So, again, I agree. Tax-exempt status needs to go, but I don't think Trump talking about it or not talking about it makes a difference. He is going to be blamed for, quote-unquote, attacking free speech rights, but as Douglas Murray said, would that be the attitude if this was the Klan going into college campuses and threatening the lives of African-American students? Okay. One other update before we get to the Biden interview on The View. We're not going to talk too much about that, but I would love to hear your take on it. Also, again, the question, well, other than the kind viewer who asked, how do you like Frankly on Fox? It has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Asking if you agree. I thank you for that. But the other question is, do you agree with Al Sharpton? Because I know we have a large contingent of Trump supporters in this audience, that the Trump supporters, the Trump voters, are getting buyer's remorse on Trump. All right, before that, just a quick update on Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and have you noticed that's been kind of out of the media? If you're Abrego Garcia, you've got to say, whoa, what happened? I thought that there was going to be a bunch of more senators. I thought I was going back to the United States, not home to the United States. Remember, home to Mr. Garcia is where he's at, El Salvador. He came here illegally, alleged to have MS-13 gang ties, human trafficking ties, known in court documents to be a repeated wife abuser. This is who the Democrats hitched their wagon to when more and more damaging information came out about Mr. Garcia. You notice the Democrats have been mysteriously quiet lately on Garcia. Isn't that interesting? With even Hakeem Jeffries saying no more trips, guys, to El Salvador. But Kristi Noem is made. So anyway, what I was saying there was that the media's been pretty quiet about it as well. But Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is making clear to Senate Democrats that, quote, there is no scenario where deported illegal alien Kilmar Abrego Garcia returns to the United States. During a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee on Homeland Security hearing on Thursday, Noem told Senator Chris Murphy, quote, Abrego Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador and should never have been in this country and will not be coming back to this country. There is no scenario where Abrego Garcia will be in the United States again. If he were to come back, we would immediately deport him again because he's a terrorist, a human smuggler, and he is a wife beater. Abrego Garcia is not a citizen of this country and is a dangerous individual who does not belong here. If he were back in this country, we would immediately deport him. kind of reminiscent of what the El Salvadorian president said at the time. Because the media said, "Are you going to send Garcia back?" And he said, "You really expect me to smuggle a terrorist into? You can't be serious. You're asking me to smuggle a terrorist into the United States." So very reminiscent of what the El Salvadorian president said with what Kristi Noem said. In no scenario would he step back in the United States, or we'll deport him again. All right, let's take a short break. We'll be right back. When we come back, Biden on The View. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Mark writes in, "Good morning, Frank." Well, good morning, Mark. Ponder this thought, that these students that are protesting at various universities are probably being backed by the countries they came from, trying to spread their beliefs here and recruiting more people. That's a great point. That was kind of to, I think it was Douglas Murray's point, that we should definitely look into the foreign influence when it comes to these agitators. I'm still fascinated by that. The large discrepancy in numbers when it comes to women protesters and men. Women far outweighing the men when it comes to that one specific instance. But we've heard that in the past, that there is kind of, like Van Jones said about the Democrat Party, this marbling of anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party. But we've also heard and seen reports that it is heavily manned, for lack of a better word, by women, this cause. Just interesting. I don't have any reasoning for it. There's nothing more to read into it other than I'm just curious as to why that is, why that anti-Semitism, especially when you look at the pro-Hamas attitudes of these protesters. I mean, and you look at what Hamas does to women. But Biden yesterday was on The View. Oh, Mark also writes, "And no buyer's remorse. Trump is doing more than I expected in a very short time." Well, thank you, Mark. That was the question. Al Sharpton believes that you have buyer's remorse when it comes to electing Trump. Now, yesterday, former President Joe Biden appeared on The View, and he blamed sexism and racism for why you didn't vote for Kamala Harris. It was sexism and racism. Never mind, this was a candidate that even the Democrat Party didn't want originally. We had heard for 4 years that she wasn't an effective VP. She's not a good campaigner. She never got a single vote in the primary when she ran the first time. She is not a good candidate. She had no great ideas. She said on that exact program that Mr. Biden was attending that she would do nothing different than Biden. But instead of accepting and doing the soul searching and saying this wasn't a good candidate, we don't have great ideas, we got to look into that. Nope, it has to be because showing that they haven't learned their lesson from November, you must be racist and sexist if you did not vote for her. They asked if you were surprised by the vote. He said, "I wasn't surprised, not because I don't think the vice president wasn't the most qualified person to be president. She is. But a lot of people didn't show up. I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, whole route. This is a woman. She's this. She's that." Boy, you're not doing good, is he? Pardon me, I guess I'm not either. "I've never seen quite as successful and consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country, and a woman of mixed race. They played that fairly well," he trailed off before joking that one of the hosts had begged him not to talk at length, as he's been prone to do. He also said he's very disappointed by the Democrats' staggering losses, claiming liberal democracies all across America, all across the world, lost last time. "I think we underestimate the phenomenal negative impact that COVID had and the pandemic had on people, on attitudes, on optimism, on a whole range of things." The retired president also divulged the fact that he talks to Harris frequently and had recently shared his opinion on an unidentified matter. Biden says she's got a difficult decision to make about what she's going to do. Now, I don't know if that means run again, if that means run for governor of California. But he wasn't surprised because, and again, the sentence is just, it's Well, it's typical Biden. But I wasn't surprised because they went the route of the sexist route, whole route. This is a woman, she's this, she's that. I've never seen quite as successful and consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country and a woman of mixed race. A couple other things that he said on The View. We're not going to talk much more about this, but I do want to take a short break and wrap up our number one. Boy, we're going quickly. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horses. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. So Biden also said on The View, the only reason I got out of the race, he downplayed his cognitive decline. The only reason I got out of the race was because I didn't want to have a divided Democratic Party. Adding that the broader party didn't buy into concerns about his age following the terrible debate performance, but the Democrat leadership and some of the very significant contributors did. So he's suggesting that the actual Democrats on the ground, so to speak, they didn't have any problem with his cognitive decline. They didn't believe he had any cognitive decline in the debate, but it was the powers that be kind of signaling the Nancy Pelosi's and, of course, the donors. It's very hurtful, especially from some of our so-called friends, said Jill Biden. I was with Joe day and night, and I did not create a cocoon around him. You saw him in the Oval Office. You saw him making speeches. He wasn't hiding somewhere. So that was Jill, kind of, again, pointing to the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. Now, meanwhile, referring to Trump, he said he had the worst 100 days any president has ever had, Biden said. Now, Steve Chung, the White House communications director, fired back saying Joe Biden is a complete disgrace to this country and the office he occupied. He has clearly lost all mental faculties, and his handlers thought it'd be a good idea for him to do an interview and incoherently mumble his way through every answer. Sadly, this feels like abuse. Wow. And did you see, and this coming out of the United Kingdom, you probably will not see this in American papers, but Jill Biden gave Joe a secret signal to stop answering dangerous questions on The View. He also had a mysterious hand wound, for whatever that's worth. He was asked a very risky question. Biden was asked about Democrat insiders, saying he suffered a sharp cognitive decline, as we were just mentioning. But after a few moments of relatively fluid speech, the former president suddenly stopped and said, "I've spoken enough." Jill, who sat beside her husband, picked up on the answer without a beat, sparking theories she may have nudged him or kicked him under the table to shut him up. The former First Lady has long been accused of hiding her ailing husband in that campaign, but she denied sequestering him during Tuesday's live appearance. Meanwhile, Biden was also seen sporting a mysterious Band-Aid on his left hand. So it is believed maybe he received a secret signal, and that's why he said, "I've spoken enough." Now, two more things on Biden. I had hoped to wrap it up in this hour. We'll kick off the next hour with that last little thing about the Biden interview. Then we're going to move along. Don't forget, in the next hour as well, Justin Eberlin will be our guest. He is running for Steuben County Legislature in the district that encompasses Caton, Hornby, and the town of Corning. So if you're in those areas, or you know someone in those areas, tell them to tune in. Stay with us. Man, I can't believe hour number one is in the books. Isn't that unbelievable? Coming up next week, by the way, Monday, we're going to hear from the Gaffer District about Glass Fest. On Tuesday, Robbie Nichols is going to tell us about the Elmira Pioneers home opener. On Wednesday, and the rest of the week is kind of Irwin week because there's a primary for Steuben County Legislature there. All Republicans here. Drenal Bakari on Wednesday. Kristen Clemens Westervelt on Thursday. And then on Friday, James Cool. That's our Irwin section of the program. And then on Friday, also we'll have Assemblyman Phil Palmisano with Fridays with Phil. Okay, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Hour number 2 on the way. And we are back. Hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. Wrapping up our discussion of Biden on The View. J.D. Vance dismissed Biden's criticism regarding the Oval Office dust-up, if you will, between Trump's Zelensky, if you recall. Joe Biden came out and did an interview yesterday, said host Martha McCullum. He said that the famous Zelensky Oval Office confrontation was, quote, beneath America. What would you say to the former president? J.D. Vance said, well, I think it's rich for Joe Biden to comment on anything we're doing when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, because, of course, under Biden's administration, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And if we wanted to take advice from anybody on foreign policy, especially foreign policy in Europe, it would not be Joe Biden. So I wish Joe Biden the best. I don't really care what he has to say about American foreign policy, because so much of what he actually did was a total disaster. If we just did the opposite of what Joe Biden did, I think we would have one of the most successful foreign policy administrations in a very long time. So he can spend his time on the beach or doing whatever Joe Biden does. We will continue trying to fix the problems that he created. What a great response from J.D. Vance. Why it's always refreshing to watch an interview or a speech by Mr. Vance. One last thing on the Bidens, unrelated to The View. Former President Joe Biden and former First Lady Jill Biden are weighing a $30 million tell-all book deal that would likely include details from the diary Jill kept during her time at the White House. Now, this is interesting for numerous reasons. This seems to happen with Democrats on a regular basis, whether it's someone like Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, all the way down to someone like Andrew Cuomo. They get these huge book deals. It's almost like a legal payoff for them. $30 million is a tell-all by Joe Biden. After we see his speeches, we wonder what would really come out of that. How much would be Joe Biden? How much would be ghostwriters, of course? But Jill Biden, is that worth $30 million? She could write a very explosive book if she wanted to, a former White House aide told the outlet. It would be interesting if they would be truthful, if we'd learn, about what their thoughts on Nancy Pelosi was, how they kept Joe Biden's cognitive decline hidden. But those are most likely not the subject matters. The joint book deal is contingent on Jill, whom experts say could be worth $15 million on her own. However, Jill would likely be required to reveal details surrounding her husband's declining mental health, as well as his disastrous debate against Trump and his decision to leave the race, which could be a holdup. The report notes that Jill Biden is Joe's biggest defender. But they are, and she would want to shape the family's narrative because we know they circle around each other. She's his grudge holder for sure. And there are definitely plenty of people she will never talk to again. But it's unlike her to take public swings at specific individuals or lay blame. It's just not her style. That's what is going to sell books, though. Money is allegedly a huge factor in the family's decision, as their son Hunter Biden is around $15 million in debt from legal fees for several federal cases, along with art sales drying up, surprise, surprise, and a floundering memoir. Given the financial state of her son, that her son is in, and the lack of interest in paid speaking engagements for both of them, they could be forced to think twice about how personal and specific they get in their book. I don't believe we'll see too much of a tell-all there, but I think it was still worth noting. All right, to New York State. The legislature passed the long-delayed state budget. Both houses of the state legislature passed the massive $254 billion state budget package yesterday. Now we know the deadline was April 1st. We are going to talk with Phil Palmisano about his experience in Albany. That's on Friday's program, next Friday. Lawmakers made the final vote on the spending plan Thursday evening after fierce debate over a provision slipped into the budget that could leave state taxpayers on the hook for millions of dollars to defend Attorney General Letitia James. We're going to talk about her in a moment as well. This certainly is the height of hypocrisy, said State Senator Andrew Lanza. The provision tucked into the budget would allow a state employee to be reimbursed for legal bills if they face discriminatory or retaliatory treatment from the federal government as a result of their employment. Lanza said, I can't imagine a majority of New Yorkers not being outraged that their hard-earned money that go to the government are now being used or can be used to pay for private attorneys to defend public officials against charges of crimes that they committed having nothing to do with their elected position. However, Deputy State Senate Majority Leader Michael Gianaris argued that the law is needed because we are currently in an environment politically where the legal system, the prosecutorial system, investigative bodies of government are being used to target political enemies. Think of the irony in that statement. When we know Letitia James made it her campaign, and Alvin Bragg, made it their campaign to use lawfare to go after Donald Trump when he was no longer president. They still hang their hat on that. They're very proud of that. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle seem to express more exuberance about the budget's passage than its actual content. The 10 individual bills that constitute the massive spending package based largely along party lines. Under state law, legislators do not get paid while the state budget is delayed. I don't know if you saw that. Go to Empire Report if you're bored. Someone went on and took a video of the line for these lawmakers to collect their checks because, yes, they get their back pay, but they haven't been paid since April 1st, so a little over a month and a week. So there's, it almost looked like the old photos during the Great Depression of the soup kitchens, where they received their paper checks for their 5 weeks of back pay. It was laughable, if I'm being honest, to see that video of how they're just waiting there. It was quite a lengthy video of them waiting for their checks. Now, the New York budget does include several provisions benefiting lawmakers, not just Letitia James. We talked about the campaign finance, which, going back to that point about how it's the height of hypocrisy and that hard-working taxpayers would be outraged if they knew that they're on the hook for Letitia James's lawyers. Yeah, well, hard-working taxpayers are outraged that they have to pay, 6-to-1 taxpayer dollars for campaigns to candidates that they may not ever support. A series of measures that appear to benefit incumbent politicians in New York were tucked into the state budget being approved this week by lawmakers, according to the Albany Times Union. You have $10 million for the legal defense, as we have mentioned, and that's specifically for Letitia James. Even though Letitia James, what she did was not in any capacity related to her job, but they are trying to suggest that it is. You have the campaign finance changes now making it even better for incumbents. And this was predicted, and that's the unfortunate part. When this was first thought of, it was tested in New York City, and then they started thinking they were going to bring this campaign finance to the state. This was back in my radio days. We talked with Assemblyman Phil Palmisano at the time. We said, look at the slippery slope this puts us on. Look at where this leads to. And we're right. It ends up now not just benefiting small donors, but big donors. It is helping incumbents, and you and I are on the hook, taxpayers of New York State, for paying for candidates that we may never support. I remember Phil said at the time, you may not want to support me. I shouldn't get your tax dollars then. But if you do support me, then you can make that pledge basically with the money. If I support a candidate, I like you, here's $100 for your campaign. That's how it should be, but not in the state of New York. The program instituted a strict set of requirements on which contributions were eligible originally to receive matching funds from the state. Previously, only contributions from in-district donors up to $250 would receive matching funds. A donation of $250 would actually end up giving the candidate $2,300 in state dollars. What does state dollars mean? Taxpayer dollars. So $250 donation from someone in your district towards your campaign gives you $2,300 in taxpayer bonus. But these last-minute tweaks implemented by Democrats will loosen some of the restrictions in the program. Among the most controversial, all contributions up to $1,050 are now eligible for matching funds, though only the first $250 of those larger contributions will be able to be matched. So there'll still be the $2,300 matched. But before it was supposed to be to kind of promote small donors, right? So anything over $250 you didn't get the matching funds. Now they're saying, well, you can go up to $1,000, but we're only going to match the first $250. It's obviously going to give more influence over wealthy voters. It's also going to benefit incumbents. Campaigns that choose to participate in the program previously had to return all leftover funds in their campaign committees at the end of the election cycle. Now, thanks to the tweaks, candidates who choose to run for re-election are allowed to keep up to $50,000 in unused funds instead of having to return the surplus. What a waste of taxpayer dollars. Is this how you wanted your money to be spent? This follows a rule change previously passed by the Public Campaign Finance Board that authorized the transfer of public campaign funds to candidates' political committees. Now, the income ban, there was talks of making a certain income. You can't make so much outside of being an assembly person or a senator. That was delayed. So again, benefiting the politicians. The state's top 2 elected officials must appear on primary election ballots together after last-minute push from Hochul, who slipped a surprise measure into the budget negotiations. The bill states that a political party state committee must choose their preferred candidates for governor and lieutenant governor as a package deal, with the committee able to select that ticket by a simple majority vote. New York is one of the handful of states that allow candidates for both positions to run separately. The provision formally codifies what has been an unofficial practice for years, as Hochul handpicked both of the politicians who have served as her lieutenant governor. It will be in place for Hochul's re-election bid. So there you go. We also learned yesterday that they have watered down Hochul's proposed discovery changes. Not a surprise. Now, she's going to declare victory no matter what. She did this with reform to bail reform last go-around, which had no teeth. It was just so she could put out the press release saying that she's fighting hard for you and for public safety, because she saw how successful Lee Zeldin was on running on public safety. The governor still got legislative leaders to agree to rollbacks to the 2019 reforms, but it wasn't exactly what she proposed. The concessions she agreed to did not dampen Hochul's celebratory mood, and getting legislative leaders to engage in even more rollbacks to their landmark 2019 criminal justice reform measure is still a victory for her. The amendments to the law still tip the scales further back in favor of prosecutors in a way Hochul argues balances them, and public defenders say makes them uneven again. She said, "I swore to fix the loopholes in our discovery law that were letting criminals walk free. Thanks to the work of the New York's district attorneys and advocates, we got it done." Now, when we come back, we're going to tell you a little bit about what some people had to say about this, and Letitia James. We've got so much going on. Oh, hey, real quick. No, I'll tell you. No, you know what? I'm going to tell you about this when we come back. I got kind of a special announcement I'm excited to tell you about. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street Corning. I said I had a kind of a special announcement. I'm very excited. We had someone earlier joke because Donald Trump is taking so many of the Fox News hosts and putting them in his administration that they're going to be running short on their stable of hosts. So I jokingly said, my number's on the bottom of the screen, and one viewer said, "Frankly, on Fox has a good ring to it." Who agrees? Well, the next best thing to being here and on Fox News is being on WYSL and WLEA, and that's exactly where I'm going to be this weekend. Our friend, Hornell Mayor John Buckley, has asked me to be on his relatively new program, The Pulse, which airs Saturday and Sunday at 1 p.m. LEA for our friends in Hornell. I don't think I have to tell you what LEA is. They're amazing. They do a great job. And WYSL, my good friends, my old friends from our radio days in Avon. I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. Get to return to my roots a little bit and go back on radio. But it's going to be, I don't know how I'm going to handle being interviewed and not doing the interview. We'll see how it goes. But I hope that if you are in that listening range, that you'll be able to tune in. I think you can check it out online as well. But WYSL, go to their website. Maybe you can listen to it there, or obviously in Hornell, WLEA, The Pulse with Mayor John Buckley. And I'll be on Saturday and Sunday at 1 p.m. I can't wait. All right, some comments from viewers. Ken writes in, "Until yesterday, I have never watched The View. I have certainly seen clips of the show and knew that watching a group of deranged liberal Trump and Republican hating women work to inoculate other women with TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, was not something I was interested in watching. Boy, was I surprised. Instead of a serious political bash Trump show, I found out that it is a political satire comedy show. I was rolling in my chair with laughter. In the future, when I'm feeling down, I will tune in to boost my spirits with a good laugh." Thanks, Ken. Yes. Seeing the clips from Biden, I understand why you would think that was a political satire comedy show. Comment from a different viewer. "Joe and Jill went on The View to fetch a bit of attention. But Joe was tricked by Jill, you see. She said it was a convention. Thank you very much. All right. I like it. Keep those comments, keep those waves coming in. So the Post suggests that the fixes, quote unquote fixes, in Hochul's budget, can curb crime and aid the mentally ill, but it depends heavily if cops, judges, and district attorneys do their jobs. Now, these won't fix all of our troubles with crime and mental illness, but at least they're a start. Isn't that so sad in New York? We get one little thing, and we have to just gleam onto that with hope. Even if they had to be tucked into a jaw-dropping $254 billion spending plan that'll squeeze taxpayers and rock the state's fiscal footing. Hochul got the legislature to okay some small fixes to the discovery law, which dictates rules for prosecutors in gathering and sharing evidence with defense attorneys. The 2019 reforms of that statute have allowed defense lawyers to get horrific crime cases tossed on ridiculous technicalities. Now judges will have to evaluate prosecutors' due diligence based on their overall effort to gather all required categories of evidence, rather than each and every individual document. Yes, they had to provide information that was not even relevant to the cases. Defense attorneys also now face a 35-day time limit to accuse prosecutors of failing to meet all the rules. Alas, cases can still be dismissed for meaningless discovery violations, even if they wouldn't have affected a case's outcome. And New York judges, who too often favor perps over victims, will still have enormous discretion on what counts as a violation and what to do about it. Hochul made more headway on expanding involuntary commitment of the mentally ill. Her fixes allow authorities to hospitalize someone not only if he or she is an imminent risk to themselves or others, but also if they risk harm because of an inability or refusal to care for themselves due to this illness. That's true compassion. It gives people the help they need, even if they're too sick to realize they need it. It also helps protect the public from potential violence from mentally ill people not yet deemed an imminent threat. Of course, the trick on both discovery and involuntary commitment will be to get cops, prosecutors, judges, doctors, and administrators to understand the new laws and implement them faithfully. No criminal should be allowed to escape consequences based on irrelevant technical violations, and it's critical to get people suffering from mental illness off the street and into facilities even, that can best care for them. Again, all this was stuffed into a $250 billion plus budget that recklessly raises state spending by 9.5%, more than 3 times inflation. That ensures budget chaos later this year when Uncle Sam chops federal aid to New York, not to mention revenue losses from any economic slowdown. At least there's some hope for making streets a bit safer and treating the mentally ill more humanely if the authorities follow through. Now, we had mentioned Letitia James, as in that budget, there is that provision that will benefit her, where we, the taxpayers, will help pay for her legal fees. Attorney General Letitia James said yesterday on MSNBC's The Briefing that her office was, quote, ready on day one to sue President Donald Trump. We held a community impact hearing this evening to talk about all of the cases that we have been involved in, and we have been winning. I want all of you and your viewers to know that we've been preparing for this moment. We've analyzed Project 2025. We've analyzed jurisdiction and venue. We've analyzed its causes and claims, and we've distributed a number of cases to all the Democratic attorney generals. So we were ready on day one, and within 24 hours after his unlawful executive order, we decided to respond to birthright citizenship. The United States Supreme Court, for the most part, is primarily reviewing a narrow issue, and that is whether or not the courts, lower courts, have the authority to issue nationwide injunctions. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. So they were ready day one, admitting. This is her laser-like focus. That did not go over well at a town hall. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the Department of Justice has opened a criminal investigation into Letitia James. A source familiar with the matter confirmed that a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia sent out subpoenas related to accusations that James misrepresented a single-family home in Virginia as her primary residence to obtain more favorable loan terms. News of the federal probe follows a criminal referral from the Trump administration's Federal Housing Finance Agency Director, William Polt, who requested the DOJ investigate James over that matter and another incident in which she allegedly misrepresented the number of livable units in a multifamily Brooklyn house to once again obtain better loan terms. James's attorney said, who was also happened to be Hunter Biden's attorney, these baseless and long discredited allegations put to rest by my April 24th letter to the Department of Justice are suddenly back in the news just days after Trump publicly attacked Attorney General James. This appears to be political retribution. President Trump threatened to extract that AG Bondi assured the Senate would not occur on her watch. All right. She did get heckled over the mortgage fraud case at a town hall yesterday. James was interrupted at a community impact hearing in Westchester just hours after the Trump administration opened a formal criminal probe into James over this mortgage fraud. Apologized to Donald Trump for wasting millions of dollars in the state of New York. Well, yes, there's that part too, how much we spend as New Yorkers to go after Trump because of Letitia James's lawfare. The interruption was met with a chorus of boos from the New York crowd as the demonstrator was escorted from the meeting. Oh, good. Escorted from the meeting, huh? Everyone knows those allegations are baseless, James responded. We want to thank him for coming. We respect all opinions as they drag him out. But apologize to Donald Trump. Okay, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Justin Eberlin. He is running for Steuben County Legislature in the Kate and Hornby Town of Corning District. That's when we return. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson Studio, and this is the Steuben County Office for the Aging section of our program. Steuben County Office for the Aging, committed to maximizing quality of life, safety, and independence. And joining us in the Hesselson Studio, we have Justin, who is running for Steuben County Legislature. Congratulations.
Good morning.
What do you think about the process? Petition process, I'm sure you've done it in the past. It's kind of a tough battle.
It's definitely a love-hate situation.
Yeah.
The hate's the weather.
Yes.
It's either rainy, snowy, or icy.
Mm-hmm.
But the love is getting out, talking to people.
And I want to talk about that, what people are saying on the ground, because I've always said, and this isn't anything brilliant, a lot of people have said it, that petitions are a part of a campaigning, and you learn so much from the people that you are asking to vote for you. So tell us, for those that aren't aware, you're a candidate for Steuben County Legislator. People can see on the bottom of the screen for District 13, Kate and Corningtown and Hornby. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So born and raised right here in Steuben County.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in Corning. Graduated from East High.
Oh, okay. All right. Interview over.
Yeah.
Right. No, of course. That's a joke.
So then from there, I started working in healthcare. I've been surgical technician, certified surgical technician for 23 years.
Wow.
Currently live in Hornby. Wife, 3 kids.
And you're, correct me if I'm wrong, the supervisor?
Town supervisor.
How long have you been that?
I'm starting my 2nd year supervisor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
4 years before that, town council member. And planning board on and off prior to that.
Yeah. I got to get somebody from West on this program once. East is taking over our local politics. I don't know what's happening. How do you think being, and we'll ask you why you ran in a minute, but do you think being supervisor in the town of Hornby will help translate you into becoming a legislator?
I think absolutely. The town budget process is going to definitely help me towards the county, you know, working with county manager and however the committees work to break that down. Yeah. It'll definitely be a key factor.
Why did you, so you've been on council, you've been town supervisor, why did you decide to take that next leap and run for legislator?
Being in some politics, being around the county Republican committee, I've kind of started gearing. I was looking to potentially run after Mr. Van Etten's terms up.
Sure.
So that was a target. I got a phone call from Carol.
Oh, yeah, of course. Who's retiring? Congratulations if she's watching.
Retiring, and she asked me to run to replace her.
That's got to feel great.
It was kind of surreal. I took that phone call. It just wasn't odd to get a phone call from her, but it just seemed weird. Yeah. A couple days passed and decided to run for it.
Yeah. Did it take a lot of soul searching? Because it's a lot of work. Or was it something that once you had kind of Carol's blessing that you almost felt obligated? Mix, maybe?
No, it was definitely mixed. The family participation was the important. Sure. Making sure everyone's on board. But like they pointed out, with her asking, I've got to go for it.
Yeah. Now, we were talking about the petition process, and we all kind of joke about it, but when you're knocking on the doors, I think you learn something about the residents that sometimes you had no idea was an issue. What were you hearing people talk about the most when asking you questions?
A lot of it was taxation.
Yeah.
You know, that people are really worried of where taxes obviously will go or can go, between property and obviously schools a target now.
Yeah.
But tax is a key to a lot of my conversation.
And we were talking out there, and you raised such a good point. It gets so confusing this time of year because now we're not used to seeing too many primaries in this area. So now we have primaries, and you've got the school vote going on at the same time. A lot of confusion there. Have you had that confusion? Have people made that difficult leap of thinking you're something with the school?
I haven't. I've strayed a little bit
Yeah.
from trying to mix
Yeah.
school
Yeah.
and mine.
Yeah.
But it'll soon be over, and we'll hit it hard.
Great. So one of the things I've talked about, and in full disclosure, I took out petitions for the Republican committee in my hometown of Irwin, and we're going to have a whole week dedicated to the 3 candidates running there on the Republican ticket. One thing that I heard a lot about was the sheriff, and I was wondering what your position is on what has happened at the county level and what has happened with the sheriff.
So my position is I obviously support law enforcement. I don't think law enforcement support is really the target of what happens to Ben County, but I have spoken with the sheriff. I've spoken to other members of the county legislature, and I'm not there to form that official opinion, what could have or what should have happened. Definitely not going to armchair quarterback. So my point is, if presented, if I'm part of this process going forward, I'm going to definitely look at every side of it and see what's right.
Gotcha. Now, what do you see from your perspective of what you'll be dealing with at the legislative level if you're lucky enough to win? Is there goals that you have?
So my first goal literally is going to be watch, listen, and learn. There's going to be so much uptake. I don't want to set a bar here that I can't.
Right.
I can't achieve.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
depending on what committee I might be appointed to, we'll go from there. But definitely keeping residents in mind.
Yeah. Now, as we mentioned with the campaign and with the school and all that going on, how do you plan on running this campaign as it nears the primary vote is June 24th? You know, it's a kind of a shortened. It's weird that if you win on June 24th, you have to wait all the way till November to hopefully get sworn in, right? So, how do you plan on, campaigning?
So I'm going to continue truly door to door, shaking hands, meeting. There's not a week go by that I haven't met a new group of people, new person in the community. We're just gonna hit it hard, back knocking on doors and getting my name out.
Have you learned anything, not from the individual necessarily, I already asked that, but just learned anything about the campaign process during all this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It really never ends.
It never does.
I mean, I'm not putting myself that I'm winning a primary. My goal is to win, but I'm already moving forward looking for November.
Yeah.
I can't sit and wait and see what might happen on June 24th.
Right. So before we go, how can people help your campaign if they want to get involved? Because this is a primary. There's not a lot of time. How can they help you?
Word of mouth is huge. Sharing my Facebook, Justin Eberlin for Steuben County Legislator. My phone number, 607-438-6040. People can contact me anytime. Not just voters, I want to point out.
Yeah.
Residents, property owners in the area.
Yeah. And I've got to believe that because you're running for legislator, people do have very strong opinions on not just your area of Caton, Corningtown, and Hornby. It's probably a discussion on all of Steuben County.
It has.
Yeah.
It's, we live on the farthest side. Steuben County is so large. I don't get a lot of questions what happens over in Hornell, per se.
Yeah.
But questions about why is a road or bridge being fixed outside of Bath in our town, or county roads aren't being worked on. So it does pop up on.
Sure. So just before we go, as I said, I hope that we can have you on again. This is kind of a meet the candidates forum. I've been thinking, and that's why we pre-tape it. So anybody sending any questions, I appreciate it. We'll get those next time. But what would you say to voters before they head to the booth on June 24th or early vote?
What I'd like to say about voters, it's obviously a primary. We're here sorting out Republicans. I want people to understand who's the solid Republican candidate for this election.
Gotcha. Well, Justin, thanks so much for giving us the time, and let's book up one or two more. I know you're going to be very busy knocking on doors, but we'd love to have you back on again.
Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson Studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Thank you to Justin for being our guest. He's running for Steuben County Legislature in the town of Corning, Caton, and Hornby. So we appreciate him being on the guest. Next week is kind of Irwin week for Steuben County Legislature, those candidates that are running for the legislature in the district of Irwin. And that begins on Wednesday with Drenald Bakari. And on Thursday, Kristen Clemens Westervelt. And then on Friday, James Cool. So next week, if you have people that you know in your life that are residents of Irwin, please inform them that they're going to want to tune in every weekday morning, but specifically to find out more about the candidates for Steuben County Legislature starting on Wednesday. But also on Monday, we're going to hear from the Gaffer District about the upcoming Glass Fest. And on Tuesday, Robbie Nichols telling us about the season opener with the Elmira Pioneers. All right, comments from viewers. Ken writes in, Frank, that was a great limerick one of your viewers sent in. Can you read it again to make sure I heard it correctly? Yes, here we go. Joe and Jill went on The View to fetch a bit of attention, but Joe was tricked by Jill, you see. She said it was a convention. Thank you very much. Ken also follows up when we were talking about campaign finance. Are the matching campaign funds for a $250 donation a one-time event per person or matched each time that person donates $250? If they are given each time a donation comes in, I could see politicians funding people to regularly contribute. Yes, I believe it's individual donations is the way it's done, but people have already misused it. There was that candidate in New York City who was fabricating names that these people didn't exist, or they did exist but did not contribute because the person must be using their own funds or funds that someone given them kind of behind closed doors, using them and using names of people that were not actually donating so that they could get that matching fund. Now that person was, I believe, charged, or at least was being looked into last I knew, but the campaign itself was a failure in and of itself. Speaking of New York politics, and this is kind of the new talking point, would a run for governor put Representative Elise Stefanik's rise among Republicans at risk? She does have that national profile. We know that Trump, a very big fan of Elise Stefanik, had nominated her to be ambassador to the UN. That, of course, fell through because of the slim majority in the House. But now I don't know if this is kind of a warning shot, if you will, by the media saying, well, this could really hurt you, hoping, because they know that she could be effective. Look at, for instance, the job she did at those hearings in Congress about anti-Semitism on college campuses. She's a very great candidate in this scenario. She's the clear favorite in the Republican Party, and I think would put a Republican in the governor's mansion, or at least close, for the first time in over 20 years. Now, I don't want to just shoot for just close, but I'm saying this is, with name recognition, a really good chance for Republicans. But is she really going to blow up, according to the Gothamist, her national profile as being one of the top Republican leaders for a long shot bid for governor of New York? She has come at a political fork in the road after Trump pulled her nomination, as we had mentioned. Stefanik saying on Fox News, look at the crisis that Kathy Hochul and single-party rule have delivered to New York. Luke Perry said, I think it's a low-risk, high-reward move for Representative Stefanik. Even if she lost, she would raise her profile and would be in line for an appointment in the Trump administration. That's according again to Luke Perry, a political scientist at Utica University. Winning would be difficult. Now, no Republican has been elected to statewide office in New York since George Pataki back in 2002. There are you ready for this number? About 3 million more enrolled Democrats than Republicans in the state, and Democrats have all the advantages of incumbency. Now, we know that Hochul is a weak candidate, a flawed candidate, but having said that, you still have that 3 million, and it'll be running in a midterm election year where midterm elections, historically anyway, have not been great for the party in power. And it says here, and Stefanik would have to answer for Trump. I don't know. Trump made huge inroads in New York, and I think that's a very good sign for Stefanik. Hochul said on Monday, Donald Trump has made sure that the Republican Party brand is so tainted in New York that no matter who runs against me, they will have the baggage of explaining why people's prices went up, why they lost health care. So there you are. Just another update on Stefanik as we wait for some type of announcement or some type of indication of whether or not she will run. Now, we had mentioned, well, do I want to talk about... Oh, I mentioned this from Al Sharpton, and I've asked you the question for you to weigh in as well before we get ready to take a break here. MSNBC political commentator Al Sharpton was on the program All In, and he said about Trump that he promised on day one many things he hasn't delivered. Now, keep in mind, this is so kind of ironic to look at this as compared to the coverage of Biden in his first 100 days. But look at what is being said about Trump in just a little over 100 days, that he was supposed to correct all the errors and all the forced errors and the unforced errors that Biden has caused, all the disaster that Biden has caused. He's supposed to fix that within 100 days. But Al Sharpton is continuing saying, and now I think you said it best, to sell rather than the prosperity is something that it's miles away from what he told his constituents or his own supporters. He does not have a deal. There is no deal. He's announced something with England today that we really don't know what that really means. We don't know what's going on with China. They can't even agree with who called the meeting. In the interim, we have Mother's Day coming up Sunday. Flowers are up. He's telling kids that they can't have dolls. I mean, this is the worst of Trump fumbling the ball. Quote, I think that a lot of voters who supported him are starting to get voters or buyer's remorse because he clearly has not only not done what he said, he's doing the opposite. He's causing inflation. He's causing it to stay where it is or rise. And it's going to cause a lot of pain to his base and farmers and others that depend on a lot of the things that he's putting tariffs on. So your thoughts, do you have buyer's remorse? Senator Tim Kaine, who ran on the ticket with Hillary Clinton, claimed on CNN that some Republicans have stood up to say Congress needed to check the power that Trump is overreaching, so to speak. In the last couple of weeks, I've had a number of provisions on the floor, sort of challenging actions of the executive that I think are overreach. I've been able to get some Republicans to vote with me on tariffs. I encourage some Republicans to vote with me to counter the Hegseth nomination to be Secretary of Defense. President Trump has taken one of the strongest economies in the world in 100 days, essentially taking a chainsaw to it. And now there's a red lights, warning signs, and question marks all over it. And he's taking a series of other actions that are very dangerous, including ignoring Supreme Court orders. In recent days in the Senate, I've been able to put some bills on the Senate floor that even some Republicans have stood up and said, yep, you're right. The Article 1 branch needs to check against executive overreach. And even Republicans are now joining me in those efforts. Democrats, we need to focus our efforts. One of the things that President Trump does is a million things every day, and then that can distract your attention. The economy is what we ought to be focusing on, as well as cuts to programs that matter the most to the most people, like Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. He got his talking points in at the end. Nothing is being done to your Social Security. So many people have been worried. We've talked about it ad nauseum, and they are looking into, I should say, in a refined manner, Medicare, Medicaid, to make sure that those that shouldn't be on it are on it. Okay. Now, yesterday, speaking kind of a little bit what Tim Kaine said, but do you believe that the Republicans are standing up? That's the same talking point they use when a Republican congressperson holds a town hall and gets attacked by outside agitators. They always say that a Republican district held by a Republican, his constituents turned on him and now don't like Trump or that congressperson. But to what Tim Kaine was saying about a million things happening every day, Trump fires the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, and what is being called an abrupt move that sent Democrats into a frenzy. Hayden, the first woman Black Librarian of Congress, received an email from the White House's Presidential Personnel Office telling her she was terminated late Thursday, according to the Associated Press. Carla, the email began, on behalf of President Donald J. Trump, I'm writing to inform you that your position as the Librarian of Congress is terminated, effective immediately. Thank you for your service. Hayden was nominated by former President Barack Obama and confirmed by the Senate in 2016 to head up the nation's oldest federal cultural institution. Her 10-year term was going to expire next year, that is, until her abrupt firing late Thursday night. A spokesperson for the Library of Congress confirmed that the White House told Hayden, who had been in charge of Baltimore's library system for decades before becoming the Librarian of Congress, that she was fired. The sudden firing comes after accusations from conservative groups that Hayden promoted children's books with radical leftist agenda. The American Accountability Foundation tweeted, "The current Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, is woke, anti-Trump, and promotes transing kids. It's time to get her out and hire a new person for the job." Democrats were outraged by the move. They credited Hayden for helping to modernize the library and make it more accessible through initiatives in rural communities and online. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries applauded Hayden as an accomplished, principled, and distinguished Librarian of Congress. Donald Trump's unjust decision to fire Dr. Hayden in an email sent by a random political hack is a disgrace and the latest in his ongoing effort to ban books, whitewash American history, and turn back the clock. The Library of Congress is the people's library. There will be accountability for this unprecedented assault on the American way of life sooner rather than later. Representative Joseph Morelli of New York called her an American hero. Now, the Library of Congress contains a vast collection of the nation's books and history available to the public and lawmakers. Its houses the papers of nearly 24 presidents and more than 36 Supreme Court justices. All right, we've got to take a short break. I see some comments coming in. Keep those comments coming in, and we'll be right back. Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio on Market Street in Corning. A couple comments from viewers. Mark writes in, "To those people that believe Trump has not fulfilled his agenda in the first 100 days, how about the left backs up and let him do his job?" Thank you. Ken writes in, "All I can say is wow, and how stupid it was to even talk about raising the limit to $1,000. This is in regards to New York campaign finance that you are funding, extensively funding the campaigns of people you may not support in any way, shape, or form. Your tax dollars going to those campaigns. So they originally was on just $250 donations or less. Now it is $1,050, but the first $250 is the only thing that's matched." As Ken writes in, "It wouldn't take a genius to figure out that they could donate $250 in 4 separate donations, so the total matching funds would be multiplied by 4. Yes, I'm not sure how that works, if they get a different person's name to do it, or, yeah, I do $250, my family each does $250, something like that. Yes, I mean, it's going to be completely misused, and it all goes to benefit incumbents, as we've talked about in the past, as most of what Albany does is to benefit themselves. And we had numerous examples of that in the most recent New York State budget. But back to Trump. Trump has been stopped by the courts. Are you ready for this? More than 200 times. According to Bloomberg Politics, President Donald Trump's expansive use of executive power faced at least 328. Wow, that's a lot more than 200. I wonder why Bloomberg tried to downplay it so much. So 328 lawsuits as of May the 1st. With judges halting his policies far more often than they have allowed them. Courts entered more than 200 orders stopping the administration's actions in 128 cases, with judges sometimes ruling at multiple stages of the legal fights. Judges had allowed contested policies to go ahead in 43 cases and hadn't ruled yet on more than 140 others. Now, Trump has urged, I got to take a break, but Trump has urged Speaker Johnson to raise the top tax rate. It'll be interesting to see now if the media and the left is now against having more taxes on the rich. We'll see if they change their position on that. Donald Trump privately urged U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson during a call on Wednesday to raise the tax rate on the wealthiest Americans and close the carried interest loophole for Wall Street investors. Trump and Johnson spoke as Republican-controlled, this is anonymous sources though, so take it with a grain of salt. Trump and Johnson spoke as Republican-controlled House of Representatives struggled to agree on a path forward on extending the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act for businesses and individuals while eliminating taxes on tip income, overtime pay, and Social Security benefits. Remember that, Social Security benefits. Not only is he not harming Social Security, he's looking to make it so it's not taxed, so benefiting you if you were on Social Security. But he did not. But they're trying to figure out a way to do it without adding too much to the nation's $36 trillion debt. This is all in reference to Trump's one big, beautiful bill. So anonymous sources saying that he wants to raise taxes on the wealthy. We've got to take a short break. Stay with us. Wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Get your last minute comments in, and we will be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. A comment from a viewer. Trump has now made the Librarian of Congress famous. Until now, nobody knew her name. She'll be on The View next week. Yes, you're probably right. They'll make it a rallying cry that she was fired. By the way, the deal was reached yesterday with the United Kingdom, as we talked about a little bit earlier on in the program. Charles Gasparino says the UK deal is a good start, but Trump needs more to declare all-out victory. More trade deals will be announced probably as early as next week from India and Japan. India would have emerged first if it weren't for its governments being distracted with a possible war with Pakistan, according to Charles Gasparino. And then Australia and South Korea could follow. More good news. We may even get a surprise or two that should boost confidence that Trump learned from the near implosion of the markets that followed Liberation Day and caused him to pause his sledgehammer approach to trade and instead cut deals using the deft hand of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent rather than the blunt of instrument of Howard Lutnick or Peter Navarro. So the U.S. does plan to slash China tariffs to as low as 50%, down from 145% as soon as next week. As top U.S. and China officials head to Switzerland for high-level trade negotiations. Specifically, U.S. officials are discussing a proposal to lower Trump's punishing levy on China's goods to between 50 and 54% as they begin what promises to be lengthy talks to hammer out a trade agreement. Meanwhile, trade taxes on neighboring South Asian countries would be cut to 25%. They're going to be bringing it down to 50% while the negotiations are ongoing, the source said. Transportation boss Sean Duffy has plotted a multi-billion-dollar overhaul of U.S. air traffic control by the year 2028. This is bold, this is going to be challenging, but we absolutely can do it, said Duffy. He calls for at least 6 new air traffic control centers, replacing 1960s-era facilities, swapping out old-fashioned copper wiring for fiber optics, wireless and satellite technology at 4,600 locations, and replacing 25,000 radios and more than 600 radar installations. All right, that does it. Comment from a viewer. Don't forget where you came from when Fox calls. Thank you very much. That's very kind. Yes, they Trump has chosen Judge Jeanine Pirro. You may know her from Fox News, but she is an Elmira native as well. Judge Jeanine Pirro to be that interim D.C. judge. All right, that does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. Thank you to everyone who joined us this morning, all the comments, all the waves. Thank you to Justin Eberlin for being our guest. He's running for Steuben County Legislature in the district that encompasses Caton, Hornby, and the town of Corning. On Monday, we'll be hearing from the Gaffer District about Glass Fest. Tuesday, Robbie Nichols talking about opening day of the Pioneers. And then the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's Steuben County Legislature from the Irwin District. Drenal Bakari on Wednesday, Kristen Clemens Westervelt on Thursday, and James Cool on Friday. And then later on the Friday edition will be Fridays with Phil, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. So join us every weekday morning starting at 6 for Frankly Speaking. Only on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We'll see you bright and early Monday morning. I look forward to it already. Have a great weekend, everyone.